Alright, short video about the cell cycle and specifically these checkpoints. At each of the phases, there are checkpoints to make sure the cell is still in good working order and should divide, therefore producing new, fully functional, error-free cells. Let's think back to this. When you're just one cell and you divide to two, this is just full steam ahead. All the cells are dividing. But by the time you get to childhood and especially adulthood, a lot of cells are not dividing. And so we need to unravel this mystery of why do some cells keep dividing, like the stem cells, and others don't. And then what happens when cells keep dividing even though they shouldn't? All right, so you should have looked at, as part of the readings in the textbook, this website. And it walks you through quite a bit of detail and even talks about each of the checkpoints and the genes involved in their regulation. So let me generalize that into just two major points. They're the genes that say go, go, go. All right, these are the growth promoting genes. There are a variety of growth factors, even like growth hormone, and others that are secreted that tell cells to actively grow. There's another more specific one in cells called cyclin. You can see here it maps out the phases of the cell cycle, and these different cyclin proteins are produced at each phase, saying keep going, keep going, keep going. Now, what happens if this goes on too much and is unchecked? Then you get cancer. So we call these proto-oncogenes. You may remember or recognize onco, like the oncology word. That refers to cancer. So proto-oncogenes are basically pre-cancerous genes. So if these are expressed too much and it cause too much cell division, that can result in cancer. So too much go signal can be bad. There are the other genes that say stop, something is wrong, it needs to be fixed, and a lot of these screen for errors in the DNA during those checkpoints. And the really important role of these guys is to keep abnormal cells from replicating, because if a cell is bad, you don't want to make more bad cells. And so there are a variety of these genes that make proteins that look for errors in DNA and say, stop, you need to fix this or you can't go on. And they kind of counteract some of those proto-oncogenes, the ones that say go, go, go. They say wait, wait, wait. And they either make the cell fix the problem or they make the cell die if the problem can't be fixed by that process called apoptosis. So let's just take BRCA genes, which you may have heard of. These stand for breast cancer. That's what that little acronym there means. And so if there's an error to one of these genes, that's particularly serious. I mean, if there's an error to a DNA somewhere, that's not a good thing. But if there's an error to the genes that screen for errors, that's really bad. And so look at some of these instances. If you have one bad version of this error screening protein, that's really common. Half or more of breast cancer cells have an error to that gene. It has a cousin BRCA2 that also is really common in a variety of cancers. Not all cancers. So it seems like pancreatic cancer, the instances here are not super high. So it's not involved in every single cancer. So let's say there was an error and the cell couldn't fix it. It says, you know, I'm going to skip that and I'm just going to go on and I'm going to divide into two cells anyway. Now those cells are kind of rogue. They're broken and they don't care. And that would allow them to develop into this mass of cells that doesn't really do anything. And so that's what we would call a tumor, essentially. Now, a tumor is a big group of cells that is cancerous, but there's a couple different types. In benign tumors, you can see this one kind of sealed up in one place. These are a bunch of abnormal cells, but they've kind of been sealed off, and maybe if they grow really fast, they could cause problems. but if they're growing slowly, they may be okay. And the fact is, probably all of us have some of these in our bodies uh, all the time. And our body eventually takes care of it, or they're not a big problem. The ones that are a problem are the ones that become malignant. Now, these cells become so abnormal that they've just kind of lost touch with reality. They have no idea what their job is in the body. They just become greedy cells that cause more blood vessels to be growing around them to feed them more. They want to spread, and when they spread, that's called metastasis. They metastasize, and it actually tries to spread out. And so here's a little group of cells. They spread out through blood vessels or lymph vessels, land somewhere else in the body, plant themselves, and start to grow again and become another tumor, which is why sometimes you will hear of breast cancer killing somebody, because it becomes lung cancer or brain cancer or hitting these other really crucial areas of the body. So obviously, if there's cancer involved, you want to hear benign and not malignant, but that's sort of the biology behind it. And it all comes back to those checkpoints that make sure that cells are producing new cells that are good, fully functional, air-free cells.